that are tools that you can assemble in a toolkit for life, because life is stressful right now. Like if you're not feeling anxious, somebody that you love probably is. If you're not overwhelmed, somebody else is that you care about. If you haven't lost a job or are stressed out about the headlines, somebody that you care about is. And everything that you're about to share that you've also beautifully written about in this new best-selling book, Open When, are just tools. And I love that you said that it's the kind of thing that you wish everybody knew and that you almost wish people didn't have to pay for.
Yeah. Yeah.
You have been in clinical practice for over a decade. You have millions of followers who hang on your videos and are so inspired and empowered by them. I would love for you to just tell the person listening, how do you think about what you're doing in your role as a clinical psychologist? Like if you just explained it in just plain speak, how would you describe what you do for people?
Yeah, well, I've definitely been swimming against the tide professionally, because you've got the therapeutic stuff and the clinical work, but then moving that educational aspect of stuff out of the therapy room, because I recognize that it's not therapy skills, it's life skills, and it's stuff that I was finding helpful, my friends were finding helpful, my family were finding helpful. And a lot of these people that were coming along for therapy who perhaps weren't at that more severe end of the scale, they didn't have any sort of clinical diagnosis, or they were just struggling to deal with whatever life threw at them because they didn't trust in their ability to be able to deal with the emotion that came along with it. And they didn't necessarily have some of the skills that you need to be able to move through that emotion or to deal with the relationships or moods or whatever it was. And so once people had that information, they were just raring to go. And so I wanted to kind of get that out there and make it more available to people. And so that's really what I'm doing is sharing the stuff that it's the juicy bits that have come out of all this great stuff that is used in clinical practice. But we should all be using it, because whether your problems are big or small, it's still useful. And so, yeah, I'm kind of making sure that everyone is armed up to the hilt to deal with life, because life is really tough.
Dr. Julie, what would you tell someone who feels like they're the only person in their friend group or their family who's actually struggling?
Do you know what? We actually did a video on this quite a while ago, but we used lots of, I'm just going to pull these over here. We used lots of rice, just as this idea of representing the population of the world. So let's say the rice here, this white rice represents the population of the world, okay? So you've got all of this, and 1 in 4 people will experience a mental health problem at some point this year, right? And the wild rice represents that 1 in 4. But when you mix them up like that, and you give it a little kind of mix, you realize that 1 in 4 is a huge number. And even if you just take one little pinch of people, so let's say that's the people in your life, even if you're lucky enough not to be struggling at this moment, the chances are you're going to be brushing shoulders with someone who is. So you are never alone when you're struggling, because even though people, you won't be able to see it in this visual way that you do with the rice, because people don't often talk about it when they're struggling, but someone else will be dealing with something. And so recognizing that we need to be kind to each other all the time.
Dr. Julie, why is it important for you to recognize that you're not the only one? Like, what benefit does it have on you if you are in a moment where you're struggling?
There is such power in being able to recognize that what you're experiencing is a normal human experience. Even when you feel like you're the only one experiencing it at that moment, knowing that that doesn't make you abnormal, that it's a normal part of the human experience that other people might have experienced at some point, even if they're not going through it now, means that you don't have to judge yourself as not being enough or not getting this thing called life correct or right. Normalizing something helps you to take the judgment out of it and start looking at it with curiosity.
The other thing that I love about it, and this visual is so helpful, is that there are going to be times where I am the wild rice that's going through something.
Yeah.
And then there'll be times that I'm the white rice and things are okay. And also understanding that we swap those positions in life, I think gives you perspective that where you're at right now, if you're struggling, isn't where you're always going to be.
Yeah, absolutely. That it changes and it's temporary. And those thoughts are so simple and yet so powerful, because if you know that something is changeable and that sometimes you're okay and sometimes you're not, and that's a normal human experience, then you're able to accept it and allow it to pass over you in that way.
And it also gives you the motivation and hope that if you do use the tools that you share with us, that you'll pass through it a little quicker.
Yeah, there are so many things you can do to help bring yourself back to baseline, and to prevent it from happening so much of the time, or to prevent those emotions from being so intense. Lots of skills you can do that you can learn and get better at that help you do that.
Well, that's why I'm so glad that you're here, because I think that, you hear the word mental health and you think something big and scary, but no, you can struggle with friendship. You can struggle with loneliness. You can struggle with not having a direction in your career. You can struggle with money. There's so many things in life that cause you to doubt or overthink or feel down about yourself. And I'm so excited to dig into the tools. Dr. Julie, as a clinical psychologist, you say that everybody deserves to have an emotional toolkit. What does that mean?
There's loads to that depending on what you're facing at any given point. And I would kind of break it down into, there are certain things where people struggle, no matter what the details of your problem is and what life's throwing at you. A lot of people struggle with, emotions. So people will often come into therapy, diagnosable or not, people will come into therapy and they'll say, I've got these feelings that I don't want to have. I'm having too much of those. And I'm missing a lot of the nice, pleasant ones that I used to have more. I would like some of those back, please.
Right.
So a lot of it is there's some skills around emotion regulation. So there are things you can do to help you regulate the negative emotion, not make them disappear. So that there's a learning about, emotion is normal human experience and it's information. It's not something that's wrong with you. If you experience sadness or anger or, anxiety, it doesn't necessarily mean there's something wrong with you. It's a normal part of human experience. So often what we do in therapy is we take the judgment out of it and we look at it with curiosity instead. All emotion is information. It has something to tell you, usually about what you need or what's going on around you. So there's this kind of shift around, emotion regulation and learning about emotion. But then there's also stuff about thoughts that people struggle with thoughts. So, all this stuff online about, only positive vibes and don't have negative thoughts. And that really sets people up to feel like they're failing, because inevitably they have negative thoughts, they have judgments, they have self-critical thoughts. And when they have them, they then think they're failing at being a positive person. Whereas often what you would use in therapy that's really and I use this all the time, is the idea of kind of thought diffusion, where you get yourself a bird's eye view of what's going on in your head. And you kind of look at the pattern of, these thoughts are coming in and those thoughts are coming in. And these are all possible perspectives that I can take on this, but I have the choice. So it's this idea that your attention is like a spotlight. And if all your kind of thoughts were actors on the stage, you've got control of the spotlight. So what most people try to do is scramble up onto the stage and pull actors off this. I don't want to think that, and I don't want to have that thought because that's horrible, and I just want to think this. And you can't control it, right? But what you do have is the spotlight. So all these different thoughts will be coming into your mind, and you can just choose what you're giving most of your time and attention to. And that will impact how you feel. You don't have to eradicate those other thoughts. There are other possible scripts that you could listen to, but you get to choose which ones you give the limelight to.
Well, and what's great about the way that you're framing this, because you're now talking about teaching us skills around managing emotions and feeling emotions and not being scared of emotions and processing them, and tools around understanding the way that your thoughts are shaping your experience and learning the skill of choosing what you want to think about or how you want to think about things. And we're going to get into those.